Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, after our recent close encounter, we further compound our peril by venturing forth into the fabled Spider Woods, home of the monstrous tree mimics the size of trees. Or so the stories go. Not sure they actually spawn if you don't take the contract though, but I do look forward to finding out. That said, before we actually venture forth, we do still need to gather our party, and whilst everyone is assembled, they're not quite assembled. So let's go ahead and slot in these last few perks, shall we? Starting with Revenant, and yes, I did go check my notes, and much as I actually hit upon last time, I had indeed narrowed down our last three picks to Fearsome, which scales off Resolve, then Berserk, which just has great tactical utility, since you do not have to use those points to attack. And then Recover, which, is just kind of a must-have if you're going to go Berserk. That aside, it's just, I think, a smart investment. So yeah, that's the final three we'll be taking for both our bannermen. And then, as for Drak, I was puzzling over what to do with him, and then I realized I kind of already set the standard with Annie, who has already taken Fearsome, so you know what? That'll just be the level 8 perk for most of our frontliners, followed by Overwhelm at 9, most likely. Especially since I am seriously considering dropping the shield on Drak. I feel like 20 plus dodge would keep him reasonably safe. So yeah, Fearsome. Bleed both body and soul with every swing. And then aside from that, I'm sure you probably noticed we've got Diego over in the recovery section for some reason. And that is honestly because while I was originally going to wait until he hit level 7 for this, he's currently got the best melee defense in the entire party. And given that we are currently running low on inventory space and just rebanked the Potion of the Sleepless, we'll toss that to Diego. It's a relatively minor bonus, but it will, I think, help him out, considering he's also got the lowest fatigue of our 3 dedicated shieldmen. Something which, of course, I do hope to improve moving forward as he gains additional levels. But for now, it makes a nice stopgap. And then finally, given his second near-death experience, I think we'll go ahead and toss this newly crafted Unhold bone plating to Rook. It will push him slightly over on fatigue, I think by 1 point. So a slight reduction in nimble efficiency. But given his naturally high unshielded defense, I think it's more important to just be able to negate that first hit every combat. And we'll also keep an eye out for some lighter, like 3 fatigue headgear. A nice medium between the heavier helmets we've got most of our other guys sporting, and his previous fashionable but fairly undefensive anatomist hat. That aside, I'll also say, I actually really like the way that looks, the way those two go together. I can actually almost imagine Eerie, our resident insect expert turned blacksmith, piecing that thing together for him, talking up the benefits of exoskeletons over awkward internal endoskeletons. Anyway, ultimate goal is to head for Tonder, but obviously we're passing through the Spider Woods en route, and we're going to clear out some of this fog of war. Since we have a mountain range, I think the general plan here is to try to find the corner, and then just sort of ride it northeast. Use those elevation bonuses to expedite our scouting. Though, of course, as always, we'll adapt as need be. Such as, for example, if a random pack of brigands stumbles right into us. Nighttime Assault, both our night vision guys slotted. Yeah, let's do this. as the raiders left the site of a particularly toothsome encounter. They soon stumbled upon a group of swarthy, heavily armed men lurking in the bushes nearby, their approach unnoticed as the men were locked in a quiet but animated argument, discussing whether or not to approach the raiders first. Unable to resist, Cetrus cleared his throat. In an instant, a dozen eyes were all locked upon the raiders. A brief, awkward silence ensued. "So you guys need something, or—" "Attack!" came a shout from the back. "Ah," Cetrus nodded. "I guess that does simplify things." And once again, battle was joined. The raiders held steady, allowing their panicked foes to make the first move, perhaps hoping they might leave some of their more vulnerable exposed. Zarmal met a spearman on the south. Cetrus stepping up a second later, hammer punching through the man's helm, cracking the skull beneath. Zarmal darted in on center. Valin moving up behind, a hurled hatchet burying deep in a brigand's bicep. An arrow arced, glancing at approaching pikemen. A toss from Tommy, and the skull-cracked spearman falls. The rest of the brigands haltingly step forward. Trip steps in, curved blade, weaving around an opponent's shield, piercing neatly between the bones of the forearm. The rest of the ruffians do their best to rally. The raiders responding in kind. Moving forward, shields raised, weapons poised. An arrow whistles, glancing off Vanny's armor. A cleaver-wielding cad begins circling on the south. Bowman takes aim. Two quick shots and an axe from Valin. A pair of bandit polearmors fall. Clearly having second thoughts, the brigand back line begins to withdraw. The ones already engaged, a bit more frantic to find their escape. Mark finds his mark, the flanking felon stumbling, a bolt in his thigh. Rev impales another. McLeod breaks a bandit heavy. A jab from Trip, this time past the arm and into his opponent's heart. And he finishes the scurrilous swordsman. A bandit butcher rushing from her blind side. But Zarmal's there in a flash, flanking the bandit in turn. Bowman sets his sight on the bandit marksman, but his shot goes wide. Val moves up next, a hurled axe, shearing an archer's arm. The brigand backline breaking, scattering for the hills. A bolt from Mark, this time puncturing a bandit crossbowman's hand. Rev catches the bandit butcher in the eye socket, driving him to the dirt. While the rest of the raiders make quick work of the swordsmen on the south, leaving naught but the panicked and scattering marksmen. Though they too are swiftly run down. The thunk of an axe. The enemy archer stumbles, then face plants mid-stride. A shot from Mark, and the enemy crossbowman stumbles as well. A bolt piercing his foot. The raiders swiftly encircle the unfortunate enemy. And as he makes his last desperate attempt to escape, Zarmal pounces. A flash of his dagger, and the final foe falls. And some halfway decent loot for such a quick and easy fight. One sec, let me pick out the choicest bits. And we're good. But obviously freed up some extra space by dumping all of our starter shields. We're beyond the need to really carry all those backups, especially with our blacksmith in tow. In fact, I think we might be just about ready to dump Annie's shield as well. That would make them more Overwhelm compatible. 10-point swing on initiative. Oh, okay. Yeah. With a max roll on initiative, I think. In fact, yes, a max roll on melee, melee defense, and initiative. That'll do it. We'll go ahead and dump the shield. A move I may come to regret later down the line, but for now, I think at least worth trying. And, you know, worst case scenario, we can just switch off to one of the heaters or kite shields. We're still carting around. But yeah, I feel like that puts Annie in a much better range for Overwhelm. Though obviously there's still a bit of a ways to go. Trip. Level 7, so that's nimble. And then stat-wise, we've got a mid-roll on melee, we've got a max on melee defense. And then let's say fatigue. He definitely needs help in that department. Though again, he'll see a pretty significant bump to both fatigue and initiative once we drop the shield. In fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that now. We are short on space in the cart, but no risk, no reward. Which brings us to Arrow, and you know, I'm actually not entirely sure where we're going with this one. We have 3 perk slots left, and we could go offense, Crippling Strikes plus Executioner. We could go utility, bags and belts for poisons and extra arrows, quick hands to shuffle things around on the fly. Possibly recover, though he hasn't really had an issue with that thus far. Oh, and then there's your classic defense stuff like rotation or footwork. Useful in emergency situations, but, you know, in theory, something you can often circumvent with proper shield bros. I don't know. A lot of directions we could take this one in, but I am curious to hear what people might recommend. For now, we'll just keep the perk point banked, I think, until I settle on something. Though, of course, we will bump his stats as per usual. He will still get something, even if we are sitting on that perk. That said, let's push on. We are trying to find the corner of this mountain range. So we'll push out into the clearing here. We move faster on non-wooded terrain. Oh. Okay, here we go. Poacher's Retreat. Full of Wiedergangers. Not the most exciting or challenging fight, but we do need undead camps for our current ambition. Yeah, we'll get in there. We'll do this quick. At this point, I think we can mulch through Wiedergangers pretty quick. At least when they're not being chaperoned by Geists or Necromancers. Let me think. Poring over a scrawled and marked up map recovered from the recently deceased bandits, the raiders noticed one place in particular that was circled in red, a crude skull and crossbones jotted down beside. Curiosity piqued, the raiders moved to investigate, soon stumbling upon the partially crumbled ruins of an old poacher's hideout. Perhaps the bandits' original base camp? The lurching, shambling figure seen within no doubt explained the bandit group's desperation. The raiders, however, were not so easily cowed by simple undead. The potential promise of a bandit cache lured them in nonetheless. As the heinous horde approached the raiders' ranks, the true nature of this place soon became self-evident. The first several figures were barely armed or armored. No doubt they were indeed simple poachers, eking out a living on the fringes of the spider wood. Many bore gruesome death wounds, no doubt dealt by the final rank of zombies that shambled into view, more heavily armored brigands, themselves having apparently met their own fate at the hands of those they had once victimized. The first group of bandits the raiders had encountered must have been the survivors of this particular ill-fated extortion, though they too had now found their own just deserts. Oh yeah, we're super fine. This is going to be easy. This Scramasax there is pretty much the only thing that's a notable threat. And even that's a bit of a stretch with nothing else backing it up. But hey, we'll take the XP. We'll take the point towards our current ambition. The first of the figures fell just as easily as the raiders had anticipated. One to Zarmal's dagger, another to Valin's axe. MacLeod and Verlin readied their spears to keep the undead funnel towards their center line. One fallen figure shambles back upright, even as arrow shoots down another. Zarmal double-checks his work on the first. The rest of the raiders holding steady. An axe from Valin, a fourth one falls. Tommy cutting one down as well. The rest of the Risen shamble forth, stumbling into waiting spears. Zarmal impales another, holding it steady for Annie's flail. A pustulent poacher rises once more. With containment breached, the raiders gleefully rush into the fray. Zarmal takes the lead, his curved blade carving fetid flesh. Drakiith joins him. Rassel moves up behind, a swing of his pole mace, splitting a sodden skull. Annie and Rev push up on the north. Val towards center. Cetrus strikes one down on the south. Random rushing in and claiming one as well. McLeod impales one on the north. Oh my. And in a sudden necrotic surge, several of the deceased poachers suddenly rise once more. Zarmal cuts one back down. Tommy splattering a skull with his sling. The raiders still aren't in any significant danger, but they are still, nonetheless, somewhat perturbed. Aside from Drakiith, perhaps. A broad sweep of his blade. Two heads are sent sailing. Manny smacks one down on the north. McLeod, the third to last. Zarmal the second. One yet still remains, the one wielding that scary Scramasax. The bandit's former leader, perhaps. But whatever he was in life, he is now but grim parody in undeath. And then, with a final thrust of McLeod's spear, he's not but wasted meat. Not even fit for warrior to feed upon. But hey, at least McLeod's got a little something out of it. Not to mention we did salvage that Scramasax, plus a very fine ring. Perhaps prized from that former bandit leader's finger. Let me go ahead and grab that gold and perhaps something else. Alright, let's see what we're doing with McLeod. He is a shield bro, so level 6. That's Oh, let's check. Verlin. Recover. Okay, right, yes. Level 6 is recover. And then stats. We'll take the max melee, we'll take the middling defense, and we'll take the max initiative. Yeah. That'll benefit both dodge and overwhelm. And with that, we push on. Right, we still haven't even reached the mountains. Goodness. Yeah, there we go. That's what we wanted. That'll greatly expedite speed scouting the Spiderwood. Wow, nothing. Okay. Spiderwood seemed to be clear, so I guess that does answer the question I asked earlier about whether or not the Shrot would spawn without that quest being active. Apparently the answer is no. So we'll just head for Tonder. Get this thing turned in, clear up some cart space. Though we might have to go to Agerstead to get decent prices. We'll see how the RNG treats us. Rabbin of Tonder welcomes you, and a few of his men hurry over to take the cargo. You make brusque small talk as he counts out your pay, then leave the fool to whatever fate awaits. One who might request such a cursed artifact. Though this does go a ways towards explaining Tonder's constant misfortune. So that is no doubt a terror contract. Which also makes local prices very untenable. I am curious, though, if both conditions will clear if we complete this singular contract. Torvald the Guildmaster flags you down before you leave town. He explains that the town is once again terrorized by creatures unknown. He just can't seem to understand why these nightmares are constantly drawn to Tonder like flies to shit. Truly it is a mystery, who's to say? But the important thing is that it provides an opportunity for a particularly potent payday. You agree to help? And once again set off. The Bay of Maddened Direwolves, meeting you nary a step beyond the village gates. And here we go. Oh! As you close in on the monsters, you realize that the foul creatures are not beasts at all, but humans in disguise. You know not why they played such a game of dress-up, but they're drawing weapons. As far as you're concerned, beast or man, they all die the same. Oh man, I'm not sure I've seen this encounter since, I want to say, like, early access? I don't recall if we ever triggered this one back during Season 1. Though that would have been before the DLC, so they would not have been sporting direwolf mantles like this. They would have actually had the original, old, unique direwolf armor, which did make them look a bit more like actual direwolves. A shame. I think they've actually disabled that now, or they've converted it to like a rare drop legendary item. So in theory, if we could snag some of those direwolf modded chainmails, we'll see what we can do. The snowstorm rages as the would-be wolves stalk towards the raiders' line, strangely undaunted to find themselves faced with such heavily armored mercenaries. One would think they would be given pause, finding themselves faced with something other than their presumably intended easier prey. Val gives them reason for pause, a hurled axe splitting a scoundrel's face, the second nearly severing his arm. The rest rush forward, Verlin setting his spear to receive their charge. Tommy clips another, the man sent staggering. A man with a menacing mohawk leads from the rear, wielding a wickedly curved billhook. He scowls as a well-placed shot from arrow kills the man in front of him. He kicks the body aside, gesturing for the rest of his men to press the assault. A javelin is pitched forward, carried away by the wind. Drakiith charges the thrower, unable to find purchase, but forcing him to focus on defense. Diego has his back, slashing another bandit who moves to flank. Cetrus moves up, catching another man beneath the chin, nearly taking his head off. The bandit leader hangs back, billhook stowed, tossing out commands and javelins with equal measures of rancor. Alois drops to one knee, catching the mohawked man with a glancing shot, buying McLeod time to rush in to lock him down. The rest of the raiders survey the battlefield. The fight tilts in their favor, but it's not yet won. Though it is tilted ever further, as Bowman puts a well-placed arrow through the bandit leader's neck. And like that, the rest of the bandits begin to break. These would-be beasts now turned to cowardly curs. Val clips one's arm with an axe, forcing his guard down. Diego following up with a swift strike that sends his head sailing skyward. The rest of the raiders push in. Though to their credit, these strangely garbed goons do continue to fight to the best of their ability. Cetrus catches one in the head, helm notably dented in. A follow-up swing from Random, stoving in his sternum with a splintering series of cracks. Verlin steps up, impaling an axe thrower's arm, then presses further still, ventilating his vitals. And he kneecaps a knave on the north. Val scores his scalp with a hurled stone. and Rev runs him through, pitching his ravaged carcass off to one side. Cetrus snaps a swordsman's ribs. Verlin finishes him off. And random smear approach is enough to break the last remaining spearman. The raiders gather grimly, knives out, eyes peering speculatively at this unfortunate spearman's particularly clever disguise. No doubt an object of interest, both to raider and anatomist alike. If it can be taken intact. McLeod draws first blood, blade sinking into the man's shoulder. Random next, a sharp jab from the left, sinking between ribs. And Annie finally puts him down, dagger finding his neck. Armor peeled away, like chain-laced hide, leaving the body raw and bloodied in its wake. Look at that, 3 full sets, though sadly I think the leather is probably pretty useless to us. The other 2, though, those I think we might have a use for. One sec, let me do some juggling. And good to go. Sorry, book thief. Oh, and narratively, let's say the leader had a note with a crude description of the raiders' appearance on it, perhaps implying these men were stalking the terrified townsfolk of Tonder in hopes of intercepting us as we made that delivery. A bit late, of course, but still in time to die. Torvald the Guildmaster reels in laughter at your reveal. Men? It was only men. You nod, but try and get the man back on track. They killed a lot of peasants, and they were still a dangerous lot. Your employer nods. Of course. I didn't mean to belittle anything or anyone. Don't dare assume things of me, sellsword. Those are my friends and neighbors dying out there. Anyway, you did what I asked of you, and for that, I am very grateful. He hands over a satchel of crowns. You count the coins inside before making your leave. The man hollers out after you. Surely you understand trying to find humor in this horrible world, right? Because it is I who went to the funerals of all those slain. I will not go into the grave with a frown on my face, no matter how hard this damned place tries to force it on me. You know what, that's fair. I can't really fault you for that philosophy, especially given the state of this particular world. But the important thing is we got paid, and Tonder is slightly less terrified, but not entirely so. We do at least have better buy prices, but not better sell prices. We'll hold off for now and try our luck in Agerstead. If they've still got the rated trade routes condition, then that will make it an ideal place to unload a lot of these random arms and armaments we've accrued. And, failing that, we'll start heading south again. I think it is about time we started pushing back towards the desert. Gotta get guns for the gunners. Also, a bit more time in the arena certainly wouldn't hurt. Relatively speaking. Hey, yeah, look at that. Rated trade routes and 3 two-skull contracts in offing. Which I think does bring us to a good place to call it. Prices are a bit on the high end, but this is a good time to sell. We'll clear out some excess inventory, and that should give us more than enough to finally upgrade our wagon. And then we can take full advantage of that with a contract-granted camp raid. Sadly, no 3 skulls, so it's not going to be like a barbarian king or anything, but hopefully still something halfway decent. That said, we'll hit the pause button for now. I will take care of the usual off-screen bookkeeping, shuffle some gear around, clear some space in the cart. I think possibly get the bulk of our guys decked out in direwolf pelts. Not my original plan, but just kind of how things turned out. And we will pick up here next time. The crisis event looms ever closer. We should probably go grab those guns while we've still got the chance. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Arrow Bowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz, Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.